And welcome back. It is the FinalScore.tv. We are breaking down the state championship games. It's time now to break down the 3A game between 12-1 O'Dea and 13-0 Mount Tahoma. We're doing it with our friend Todd Millis from Varsity WA News. Todd, we talked about the 4A game. Do you see a similar style game in the 3A, or is this going to be a little bit more kind of an in the trenches, maybe a little lower scoring game than the shootout that we talked about in the 4A game?
Yeah, we're going to watch an good old fashioned NFC North game in this one, Dick. It's going to be all about running the football and playing good defense. We talked about Sumner and Lake Stevens and putting points on the board. I think putting points on the board is going to be a lot more difficult in the 3A championship game. We're talking about one of the best defensive fronts and defensive lines that we've seen in decades with O'Dea. All four of those guys are Division I prospects. You have the Nonu brothers in the middle. You have David Schwartzel at one end, and you have Faciale on the other. They've just wrecked offenses all year. In fact, not just this year, but for 3 years. So, and then you have a Mount Tahoma defensive front that I don't think a lot of people know much about, Dick, because they're in Tacoma, and it's when you think of Mount Tahoma football, largely you think about a lot of losing seasons in the past since they've won this thing in 1980. So it's been 45 years since they've been in this situation. I've covered a lot of winless Mount Tahoma seasons where they struggled to get kids out. So I mean they haven't been a kid on the block championship block for very long. And the way they've built this is a lot like you'd see in the 3A Metro League. They want to run the football with a rotation of three guys, and they want to play really, really good defense with a good defensive line in the Jones brothers at linebacker. And it's going to be a war in the trenches. I think the first team to 20 wins the football game, and O'Dea's won it. Monty Kohler, the all-time winningest coach, they have the pedigree, but I think Mount Tahoma has the hunger and drive. I think it's going to be a really interesting, fun matchup, and it's kind of nice to see somebody new in the championship game because, Dick, I think we get used to the O'Deas and Eastside Catholics and the Bellevues and Yelm here recently, kind of being those teams. It's kind of nice to see some new blood in the Gridiron Classic.
Yeah, that Mount Tahoma defense is really impressive. I mean, he shut down Eastside Catholic, holding the Crusaders to 6 points last week. I mean, offensively, the numbers don't jump off the page. They were 8 of 16 through the air and had 3.8 yards per carry, but they keep trying to pound you. They had 36 carries in that game, but the defense did their job. Let's just talk a little bit more about this defense for Mount Tahoma. It shut down Eastside Catholic, holding them to 6 points last week. Who makes that defense go, and what type of defense is it? Is it going to be aggressive, swarming? Is it going to be more contained and just stop you at the line of scrimmage? What type of D do they play? Because they have been outstanding all year long.
Yeah, they like to bring pressure at the line of scrimmage. They've been a really difficult defense to run the football on all season. Very opportunistic. Shannon, Teven Jones. We talked about the Jones boys. Kind of in that middle line of that defense, both as in coverage and getting after the quarterback have been fantastic. They have two really good defensive tackles, and then you have you have one of the best corner guys or coverage guys in the state in Elijah Durr, who's signed with the Washington Huskies. So you just put him on the best receiver on the field and consider that shut down. I was a little surprised, Dick. The Eastside Catholic game was a big hurdle to clear, a big test, because I don't think people, I honestly, with what Mount Tahoma has accomplished, people in the Metro League kind of roll their eyes and go, hey, we beat this team last year, or we've seen this team before. But for them to force 4 turnovers and basically shut out Eastside Catholic's pretty good offense until the last few minutes of the game was very, very impressive. I don't think a lot of people thought Mount Tahoma would control that game, and they did. So I think it caught O'Dea's attention because I'll be honest with you, I covered the O'Dea Bellevue game last week. But, the O'Dea offense is not firing on all cylinders right now. 188 yards of offense against Bellevue. They were outgained. 3 interceptions from Hutton Liverette. So they're going to have to play much, much better offensively to put a scare in this Mount Tahoma offense. But these two teams played in the WIA playoffs last year, so O'Dea sort of knows what's coming. It's a little different. They're a year older and whatever, but O'Day's going to have to figure some things out and get firing a little bit more on offense with Uriah Stringfield and Jay Sean Wilson in the run game, much better than they did last week.
Well, Mount Tahoma was able to run the ball successfully against Lincoln, 39 carries for 263 yards and 4 touchdowns. They're going to need to kind of control the clock against this O'Dea tough defense. Quentin Hodge it might be a little bit of an X factor. He got a kick return for a touchdown against Prairie in the first round before the bracket, kind of the crossover round on November 7th. So that might be in a low scoring game. Who knows? A big special teams play might come into play there as a difference in the game. But for O'Dea, they put up 49 in the first half against Cedro Woolley 2 weeks ago for a quarterfinal win, 56-21 in that game. But they jumped out to a 14-0 lead on Bellevue and held on for a 20-14 win. But as you mentioned, maybe the offense not quite firing on all cylinders. Who will lead that O'Dea offense? And if they get a win, who's going to be the catalyst for that win?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I would have said Uriah Stringfield with what he did last year. He dominated the postseason, had a fantastic semifinal, over 300 yards against Eastside Catholic, and really kind of did a number on Bellevue in the Gridiron Classic game. He's been dinged up most of the season. He had a concussion earlier in the year. He's trying to come back from an ankle thing. He did not look even close to 100% last week. He was limited. He had limited carries. Jay Sean Wilson, a sophomore, has been a godsend for this offense, Dick. Came on in the Rainier Beach game, had over 100 yards, had a string of 100-yard rushing games, had a couple big runs against Bellevue. He kind of represented their run offense last week. They'll just do it with the myriad of guys. You'll see Peyton Egan. You'll see the two guys I mentioned. They'll bring in the freshman quarterback. He's a kind of the Moi Moi kid. They like him in special packages and sort of a wildcat or hand the ball off. He had 2 touchdowns against Bellevue last week coming off the bench. If they have to pass the football with Hutton Leverett, and Hutton Leverett has also been kind of dinged up this year. Yes, you have Leo Boncaro on the outside. You have David Schwartzel at tight end. But if this offense is forced to pass the football, I didn't like what I really saw from this pass offense last week. They just weren't firing very well. So it's going to have to be predicated on what Jay Sean Wilson and Uriah Stringfield give them in the run game, and hopefully for Monty Kohler's sake, it's a lot more than what we saw last week at Renton Memorial.
So is there a favorite in this one, or is it going to be last a tie 13-13 type game, and whoever has the ball last that can get that game-winning field goal is going to take care of it?
Yeah, I'm not betting against Monty Kohler and his staff. The biggest difference is they've been here. They're the champs. Yeah. They had a brutal schedule. They've had to endure some things here in early in the season with the injuries and plug and play. Some guys that weren't available till week 5. I won't bet against O'Dea, but listen, it would not surprise me with the way that Mount Tahoma has played all season. They had a big win in the beginning of the year at Camas that I think opened some eyes. But offensively, they've been kind of hit or miss. But they're playing their best football right now, especially the last 2 weeks against Lincoln and Eastside Catholic. So it would not surprise me if the Thunderbirds went up to Seattle and won this football game and brought home the big trophy for the first time since 1980. Living in Tacoma, I don't know if I'd sleep on Saturday night. There'd be too many parties in the streets if Mount Tahoma were to pull that off on Saturday night Friday night.
Be a lot of fun. That'll be on 93.3 KJRFM. Mike Benton will have the call on that one on Friday night. Todd, great stuff. Appreciate it.